Hello, my loves. Welcome back for today's video. Today, I want to share with you a review for the Empath Oracle deck. I have been using this all of this month per request of the author of this deck in order to share my thoughts with you. And I'm really excited to share my experience with this deck because it is not what I thought it would be in the beginning. It was much better than I anticipated. So without further ado, let's get into it. Quick sip of coffee here. So this is the Empath Oracle. It's published by Llewellyn. The book is written by Raven Digitalis, and the art is by Konstantin. Sorry for any butchering of names. And this deck says, step into a surreal world of radiant colors and affirming emotions. Includes 40 cards and a 224-page full-color guidebook. And this deck is one that I had seen briefly on Llewellyn's website, just kind of like, they have those sales, and I scroll through as you do. These are the backs. And it wasn't one that I had paid much attention to, but after using this deck, I really, really like it. This deck is one of those decks that really benefits from you using your intuition and interpreting and feeling into what the imagery means to you. And at first glance, that might feel like it's kind of difficult to do, or you might not get a lot of depth out of it. But this is actually a really, really deep and interesting deck to sit with. I have had some very supportive readings with this deck. I was using it most of the month as like a daily draw for me. And I'm in a period of my life right now where I'm doing a lot of personal work, but there's also just like a lot of chaos around me that I'm dealing with. And having the grounding messages of this deck has been really helpful. Not in just the guidebook, of course, with Raven's words that he shares for each card, but also in the art and in what comes up as I look at each image. And there's just really expansive landscape kind of contained within each art piece. And I feel that the titles that Raven has chosen really grounds the focus and the scope of where that intuitive message can take you. And I think that's so appropriate for the idea of an empath oracle. Now, we're not talking about empath in terms of perhaps the more popularized term that's used to describe, like social anxiety. While that can certainly be part of it, we're talking about the perception of energies around you and kind of that role that we play in alchemizing, grounding, holding space for all those kind of energetic things, and being just a highly sensitive, energetic being, and being specifically tapped in with that. So this isn't about being the empath victim, which I feel like it's an archetype we often see of like, oh, I'm an empath and like everything's coming at me, right? This is more of like focused on the self and how you're feeling, what the larger vision is, but really like honing in on the scope of those feelings, grounding into what's going on right now and how can you productively work with those emotions. How can you ground yourself in such intensity to really nurture you in whatever you're going through? And I found that was exactly how this deck worked for me. Now, of course, everybody has different experiences with decks, but I really enjoyed the deck for that purpose. This guidebook is really great. This is my card that I pulled for myself this morning. And this isn't one of those examples where I really love just the openness of how you can interpret the artwork, but you have your kind of lens already focused in for you. Not to tell you that that card means that, but just like, hey, this is what we're kind of honing in on. And then you can kind of interpret in your own. And I saw this morning as like a giant wave, and it was like, are we getting lost in the wave, or are we surfing the wave of fear? That kind of analogy. So that was really beautiful to see and how stand out in this particular deck. So the guidebook is fantastic. I was privileged enough to get a little signed copy here. But here is this is the author and the artist, and I really appreciate that Llewellyn put information about both, because both are needed to make the deck, and the experience that you get with it. There's also an introduction provided by both, which I really, really enjoyed. Here it talks about, I highlighted this, the author Raven was saying being an empath is similar to I can't pronounce this word. But the three parts of the empath are the external energy, the energetic reaction, and your conscious response. And I really enjoyed that, obviously, since I highlighted it. Here's the introduction for the artist, which was fantastic. And then the artist also has this about the artwork blurb in the back. And I just want to read this one sentence to you, because I feel like this summarizes this up really nicely. It says, my acrylic hand paintings are the dynamic expression of a subtle and intangible world from which all the material phenomena of ours originate. Love that. So obviously fantastic cards to use just intuitively, like I've been saying with the keywords, but the guidebook is fantastic too. So for each card, you get the image reproduction, which is really great. You get the title, a few like bullet points of essential themes. You get a note about the imagery. And then you have a deeper meaning, which is usually quite long, and then suggested actions as well, which I find really helpful, actually. I feel like sometimes these guidebooks can get like repetitive or generic, but this one does a great job, and this author did a great job at providing things that weren't just something you'd find like Googling. You know what I mean? Something that's actually different or helpful, or shows that they kind of know what they're talking about. So let's find taking a vow, just so we can look at the imagery while we explore this guidebook meaning. And if you are feeling resonant with this, please take this as a message for you and leave whatever doesn't. I randomly flipped open to this, so we're going to use that kind of bibliomancy style reading for this. So we have taking a vow. Choosing self-discipline as a way to better understand ourselves. Considering what kind of vow or fast would be best at this time. Tapping into intuition in order to determine what needs attention. Those are our essential themes. Imagery. A woman in this picture is immersing her whole being in the essence of life. She knows that only by merging with the whole can she reach her highest destiny. She makes a promise to always stand by the side of eternal flow and overcome all challenges to the best of her ability. Her beauty is the beauty of the universe. Deeper meaning. Because our emotions can be so easily swayed and influenced, we empaths often struggle to come back to ourselves. Ain't that the truth? Alongside self-assertive daily practice and an understanding of energetic dynamics, We take this a step further by observing vows and resolutions from time to time. Vows take numerous forms and do not have to be restricted to particular styles of practice. In fact, we can look inside ourselves to see what kind of vow or vows would serve our spirit best. When we tend well to our spirits, we can serve others with greater clarity. When we practice vows or observe personal resolutions, whether for brief or long periods, we are engaging in a process of spiritual, emotional, and mental purification. Vows should not be undertaken with the ego in mind, that is, how we can impress other people, but with the intention of healthily pushing our own limits. Vows, especially fasting from food, should be undertaken with mindful awareness of physical and psychological health. When in doubt about taking any type of vow or fast, consult a professional. It may take some meditation and soul searching to decide which kind of vow you wish to practice and for how long. This is likely to change each time this card is drawn. For example, I may draw this card and choose to make a plan to practice a vow of silence for a day or for 30 minutes each morning. The next time I may be guided to become vegan for a week. Another time this card may indicate the need to finally get working on a hobby I've been putting off. Employ your empathic intuition to decipher the message at hand. And I love that the author emphasizes this even in the introduction. The idea of this card doesn't always have to mean the same thing. It can mean something different with each time you pull it, and I really love that. Suggestions for action. This card calls for intuition to be utilized when personalizing self-discipline. Feel free to refer to this list for ideas and expand it based on your own callings and personal needs. Let it speak to you. Here are some ideas that may help you intuitively hone what this card is communicating in the present moment. So we have unplugging from technology, using the words I and me as little as possible, performing a juice fast, temporary vow of silence, fasting from alcohol and intoxicants, practicing morning meditation, not using swear words. That might kill me. Joining a class, course, or spiritual gathering, volunteering, creating a vision board, reading books, cleaning the house or yard, exercise, temporary vow of celibacy, dedicating to completing a certain task or piece of art, journaling every day, taking a temporary break from society, catching up with friends, decidedly doing something you've been putting off, and whatever else your intuition guides. So that was just a little look into the Empath Oracle. I hope that you enjoyed my thoughts on this and hearing a little bit about my experience with it. Again, this is a deck that I really feel like grounds me in some chaos, especially when there are a lot of feelings flying around. And it's one of those decks that I'm super happy to have the privilege of taking a look at, because it's probably not something that I would have picked up on my own. But now that I've used it, I actually would recommend it if you're feeling drawn to it, or even if you're not feeling drawn to it, but you just know that you kind of need that energy in your life. There's something so magical about seeing these things in person. And this is one of my favorite cards from the deck, by the way. I feel like it's very appropriate for the title. But we can only feel so much through a screen, right? We're able to share energy, to share the imagery, to share our experience. But sometimes the little screen that you're watching, even if, it's all color corrected and XYZ and edited beautifully, it still doesn't translate the experience of actually holding something. And this is one of those decks that I feel like is like that, that this applies to. It's really a different experience when you get to hold it in your hand versus just looking at the imagery and say the listing or this video. But that is it for me today, my loves. Let me know your thoughts. Do you have this deck? Have you worked with it? Is it intriguing to you? I'd love to hear your experience, as we all have a different experience with the deck. I didn't talk about this because it's never much mind to me, but it is this lovely glossy but not overly slippery cardstock, which I feel like you really need to make these paintings pop. It's sturdy but shuffles really well, and I have quite small hands. So thank you to Raven for sending this my way. It was a lovely gift to be able to explore this deck. And if you do enjoy this deck, I know that Raven has other things within this series, books about being an empath and things. So I'll leave those links below if you'd like to explore any of this. And with all that being said, thank you for sharing your time with me today, my loves. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Take care. Bye.